Good afternoon, everyone. On behalf of the Institute of Company Secretaries of India, I extend a very warm welcome to all our esteemed participants joining us today from India, from Singapore, and from all across the globe. I am CS Sonu Nahata, Deputy Director at the ICSI, and it is my absolute privilege today to moderate this international webinar on company secretaries, beyond boundaries, global reach, and AI integration. We're delighted to host this webinar in collaboration with the ICSI Overseas Center Singapore, which is playing a key role in sustaining our global connect. I'm sure all of us here would agree that the company secretary profession has undergone a significant transformation from a compliance-focused role to that of a strategic governance advisor with an increasing global relevance. Through this webinar today, we'll explore this expanding role of company secretaries beyond traditional boundaries by redefining the contours of the profession. And as we discuss how company secretaries can operate across functions, across geographies, and emerging technologies, we'll also take you through a very practical and application-oriented approach towards integration of AI into secretarial practice. Please feel free to drop your questions as we go along. We'll try and get answers to all the relevant questions at the end of the panel discussion, if time permits. So to set the tone for today's discussion, it gives me great pleasure to invite CS Dinesh Makhani, Chairperson ICSI Overseas Center Singapore, to please share his perspective on the Singapore Center's journey so far, and to also give us a brief context for today's theme. Welcome, Mr. Makhani.
Thank you, Sonu, and good afternoon to all of you, all esteemed members and CS. It's a privilege and honor to introduce the ICSI Overseas Center Singapore. Let me acknowledge where we come from. The ICSI Center in Singapore was set up in 2024 and has privileged to successfully hold the third ICSI Overseas Conference in Singapore on 5th and 6th April 2024. ICSI Singapore chapter was created with one clear mission: to strengthen the global outreach of the profession while augmenting professional opportunities for ICSI members internationally. Singapore was a natural choice as one of the Asia's most dynamic, stable, and peaceful financial and business hub. This city-state represents exactly the kind of environment where governance, compliance, and corporate professionalisms are not optional, they are essentials. Our center here is led by a committee of dedicated company secretary professionals. We are not on the periphery. We are exactly where governance conversation happens. Our vision for this chapter is anchored in three pillars. First, community. To bring together ICSI members across Singapore, foster meaningful discussions, connections, and share knowledge, and create a support network for CS professionals across the globe. Second, capabilities. To organize programs, seminars, and webinars that keep our members at the cutting edge of corporate laws, governance framework, AI, and evolving regulatory environment both in India and Singapore. Third, credibility. To evaluate the recognition of the CS qualification in Singapore and internationally so that the employer, a regulator, or a board sees the letter CS, they know they are looking at a professional of the highest caliber. I am sure that every ICSI member who has joined this webinar today will surely benefit from the knowledge sharing of all the panelists with the rich experience in diverse fields, whether you are in practice or in employment. This webinar is yours. Take the advantage of the knowledge sharing and contribute and lead. Thank you. Thank you, Sonu.
Great. Thank you so much, Dinesh, for this quiet, elaborate outlining of the ICSI's growing global footprint and giving us a sneak peek into the opportunities that lie ahead. We'll now move on to our opening segment, and I'm very delighted to invite here our distinguished panelists from Singapore to share their invaluable professional experience and their diverse global perspective. We have with us today CS Hemiksha Bhojwani, Senior Corporate Counsel, APAC and EMEA, Atmos Filtration Technologies. CS Priya Mahajan, Head, APAC Public Policy and Regulatory Council, Verizon. CS Nitish Chandan, Chief Executive Officer, ECRA Private Limited. And our very own ICSI Overseas Center Singapore Chairperson, CS Dinesh Makhani, who's also founder and director of IBS. Welcome, everyone. Let me start with Hemiksha. Hemiksha, you've worked across APAC and EMEA regions with very diverse regulatory environments. How has your journey shaped your view of the global CS role?
Sure. Thank you, Sonu. Thanks for that question. And thank you for having me on this panel. It's my absolute pleasure to be with this distinguished panel members today and represent CS at a global platform. It's absolute pleasure to be here today. So a brief background about me. I'm a qualified company secretary, obviously, and a lawyer. I'm an in-house counsel. I haven't done practice on the CS side for sure, but for the past 2 decades, I've been associated with multiple corporates. And these have been companies like when I completed my CS, I interned with Colgate-Palmolive, continued with them for about 4 years, moved on to join Interglobe Enterprises, which is the Indigo Airlines group. And then eventually I joined Cummins in Pune and have been with them for almost 11 to 12 years before I moved into Singapore. And after I came to Singapore, I continued with Cummins and then switched to another group company, which was Atmos Filtration Technologies, where I currently head where I'm the regional counsel for APAC region, as well as for the Europe, Middle East, Africa region. And obviously, there has been a shift. There has been quite a lot of pivot from the India CS, where back in India, I was the designated CS for private companies, for public companies, for listed companies. So there has certainly been a paradigm shift for me over a period of time. But well, precisely to your question, I don't see a lot of difference in the global CS role. Rather, it's more of a natural evolution, right? It's a very sorted extension of what we do in India. It comes with a strong, our CS Institute lays such a strong governance foundation for us that when I look at it from a global lens, the CS role seems to be just a broader, a more strategic and cross-border mandates and compliances, so to say. But the base certainly remains the same, right? So the CS that we do in India, the framework is so rigorous, it is so robust that it certainly helps build us deep expertise into various laws, not just corporate laws, but generally overall in terms of the board governance, board processes, compliance into various streams, right? And I think this translates very well and gels very well in terms of integrating when you do a global role. So the shift was pretty easy, I would say. Rather, it was more hands-on with all the experience that I had in India. It wasn't rocket science when you had to switch and do cross-border corporate laws. It was certainly a seamless transition for me. The few things that certainly that stands out for any professional who considers moving, doing CS at a cross-border level outside of India is certainly we have to have that cross jurisdictional, the multinational thing of agility, right? Unlike where in a domestic role, the unlike like a domestic role, I would say that the global CS they have to navigate through multiple challenges that we may have to face from a regulatory system standpoint because every region has its own laws. But I think the foundation certainly remains the same, right? So I would also say that strategic influence that we as corporate secretaries drive is critical. So while we may be always be looked up as, the watchdogs, I think we are also the board advisors, right? We are also the governance partners. People certainly don't like to come to legal and CS because they feel, hey, it's going to be a no show for them, right? It's going to be a stop thing for them. But that's certainly not the case. So creating that commercial awareness and having those business insights personally for us certainly helps us integrate seamlessly into a global portfolio. Thank you, Sonu.
Great. Now, that's quite a diverse experience beyond the traditional role, right from the very beginning of your finishing your qualification. And yes, you very correctly mentioned that our institute, the ICSI, makes us a thorough professional We just have to be a little open when we are looking for opportunities outside to, to be able to adapt to things that are available and to navigate the respective jurisdictional landscapes. Thank you so much for that. Dinesh, the next question would be for you. You wearing both the professional as well as the entrepreneurial hat. How would you define your journey?
Thank you, Sonu. So, standing before you today is a moment of great personal significance. I have 3 decades of experience, both sides. I sit across the table also and within the table also. As a professional, I started my journey as a management trainee in 1996 with Pfizer India Limited, which is a multinational company, wherein I did my CS training and my foundation became very strong. After that, I joined as a finance manager and company secretary with West Coast Industries, which is a garment export house in India. Then I moved on to German multinational, that is Bayer Pharmaceutical Limited, which is a pharma company in India. Then I shifted to Mutual Mecaplast, which is again Indo-French joint venture company. Then Saint Gobain India Limited, and lastly Enext and Gravis Group. Simultaneously, I worked as a non-executive director after leaving Mutual Mecaplast, and I supported their legal, financial, and other secretaries. So secretarial role, because as a secretary, we get a chance to be directly representing the board as a company secretary, and that gives us the direct access to the board of directors. I see myself as a biggest opportunity which other professionals are lacking. So as a company secretary, the moment you are appointed as a company secretary, irrespective of age or experience, once you are a company secretary, you are directly representing into the board. And that chances are very, very rarely available to the other professionals. So after 15 years with the corporate life, and me and my wife both thought of shifting the gear to the next level, and we left the job. Both of us have left the job and started this IBS as a group in India in 2009. From there, our focus was to serve the multinational companies, those who are setting up offices in India. And they were looking for a diverse landscape, finance, accounts, legal, company secretaries, all the roles into one. And they are looking for one professional whom they can connect directly to resolve all the queries. And that's where we step in. And we have grown from there. To 2015, we expanded to Singapore. Singapore, as Amixa said, the legal fraternity and legal laws are more or less similar, except some technicalities you can see, like board meeting and all are common across the globe. So it was natural choice that in Singapore, everything is online. So like in India, we have MCA, in Singapore, we have Accra. So it was easy for us to learn the transition and shifted to Singapore for incorporating our company in Singapore. Along with this, I even shared my knowledge with ICSI and ICMA as a visiting faculty, as an oral faculty, and visiting faculty with JBIMS. So that was my passion to teach as well as share my knowledge with the students. Then not all is success. Like we even see the failure also. In 2015, we started one venture which is called lakapo.com, which is an online platform which was connecting the professionals like company secretary, lawyers, chartered accountants to the client directly. But we have to shut down that and wound up in 2 years due to technical expertise, which we don't have as a company secretary. So we normally need to partner with the IT guys. But nevertheless, we learned the lessons and we are growing simultaneously in India and Singapore. And for Singapore CS professionals who aspires to build an independent advisory and enterprise or expand their practice globally, Asian regions, I suggest them to first study our foundation is very much strong in India. So we just need to learn the nitty-gritty of the local countries, whichever country we want to expand, and plan our expansion with a study and go global, I can say. So as a chairman of the ICSI Singapore Overseas Center, one of my foremost commitment is to strengthen the presence and recognition of our professions in this region through collaborations with regulatory bodies, partnership with professionals, institutes, and by creating vibrant platform wherein ICSI members can engage, upskill, and grow. This webinar is a live expression of that commitment. Thank you.
Okay, my bad, Dinesh. I had just given you two hats, entrepreneurial and professional. You brought in the chairman perspective as well. So thank you so much. And yes, particularly something that I was absolutely interested was you sharing the failure part. I mean, all of us talk about our journeys wherein we've achieved something and we would want to share that. So I'm really happy that you touched upon that how things did not work and it still did not stop you. I assure you, everyone, ladies and gentlemen, this is definitely going to be a very interesting discussion. So on that, I'll just leave it as of now. I'm just leaving it on that for you, Dinesh. And I'll move on to Priya. You are into public policy and regulatory leadership role. What shifts have you seen as a professional?
Thank you. First and foremost, big thank you to ICSI for this wonderful, wonderful opportunity to be here today, sharing our experiences, our career journey, and a warm welcome to all our fellow members, whether you're joining us live or listening to us in the replay, a warm welcome to you all. Before I get started, I'd just like to say that the views that I'm expressing in this session today are purely my own personal views, and they do not represent the views of the organization that I'm affiliated with. So a bit about myself, because I think that really would be relevant to the journey, the career journey that I took ultimately. Studied economics for my undergraduation and I did law as is a natural progression. And the decision to pursue company secretary was not really an academic one. It was more about me being on boards of several companies and in my own company as well. And that particularly prompted me to kind of make sure that I fully understand my roles and responsibilities as a director. And so this CS degree really helped me with in the leadership roles that I have been through, the complexities of the corporate governance, the regulatory shaped me the road less traveled, which means I didn't join, as a litigator or as a practicing lawyer, and I joined as an in-house corporate counsel, similar to Himiksha's journey. And my entry into the corporate world actually coincided with the entry of telecom providers into the Indian market. So the telecom sector was opened up to privatization in that era. It actually offered me a great opportunity to be at the forefront, at the intersection of a moment in the history where the companies were really hiring a lot of professionals who had a legal background and who could help them navigate some of the complexities. To your point about regulatory compliance and public policy work, I think at that point in time, public policy as a profession hadn't evolved that much, or be it even regulatory, but a lot of companies that were trying to get into India through market entry, they wanted to understand how the market works. You need to have the cultural nuances, you need to understand the lay of the land, and also while you're dealing with the government, you need to understand the sensitivity as well. So I'd say that I was very lucky and fortunate to be able to jump onto that opportunity. So I have worked with telcos all along for the last 26 plus years. So I've worked with large companies like Bharti Airtel Limited. I have been responsible for the regulatory compliances. And in 2008, I was lucky enough to be selected by Verizon. Verizon is a global telecom company, and they were setting up their operations in India, and that's how they chose me as their first chief counsel. So my role was basically to set up the shop there, make sure we have all the compliances, all the licenses in shape. And in 2017, I was offered an opportunity to move into Singapore. And this was basically a hardcore public policy role. And the reason they chose Singapore, because, as we will kind of discuss in our next segment, Singapore's policy environment is very pro-business, and they tend to take a leadership role when it comes to policy issues. So the company thought that this would be a good time for us to invest in policy, invest in relationship building with the key stakeholders that we work with. So that's how I came to Singapore in 2017. And since then, it has been a real pleasure working with different stakeholders. And I do work with trade associations, represent my company at different forums, and periodically speak on issues of importance to our organization. I want to share a little secret about the road less traveled. I think everybody who's on the session, attending the session, whether they are overseas already, whether they are just pivoting their career, if you are sitting in India right now and you're wondering if your skills right now will translate into a boardroom in Singapore, London, or Dubai, I think the answer is yes. But if you're willing to leave the safe script that you have and embrace the discomfort of being something more challenging, I think that's where it will help you. Coming from India, I think our roots give us a lot of resilience, right? And our global ambition is going to give us wings. Combine that with skill sets and our ability to not be feeling afraid of anything, I think the world is going to be our oyster in that sense. So yeah, back to you, Sonu. That's about me and my brief career journey.
Wonderful. Priya, you kept talking about being lucky and the opportunities coming to you, but I tell you something, opportunities come when we least expect. What you've not really mentioned, and very humbly, the reason why probably you are here today, you are at where you are today, is because you've been so humble in just putting it all to that you've been lucky. What you've not mentioned is you've been persistent. I mean, you've been doing things. You've taken the unconventional path and you've been willing to take that challenge. So I think that is what we are trying to bring in here. That point is what we're trying to bring in here, that we've got the strength, we've got it all in us. All we have to look is be a little open and a little more exploring and accepting the challenges that would be there. And I think the world is all yours then. Thank you so much, Priya. And now, Nitish, we come to you. And for you, we're looking a little more than your professional journey. We're looking forward to a little more than your professional journey. Ladies and gentlemen, Nitish will also share his insight into secretarial function through a presentation. So your journey and that presentation. Thank you, Nitish.
Thank you so much, Sonu. Thank you, Dinesh and Demetra and Priya for setting up the context. My professional journey is pretty vanilla. I have been into practicing side of profession all my life. More than 20 years into practicing side, more than 16 years in Singapore. First 2 years, I was working for some other practicing firm. For the last 12 years, it's my own firm. So setting up a practice from scratch, it's a lot of hard work, sweat, sacrifices, but I will not go into that. I think I'll bring you straight into my presentation, which is about integrating AI into the professional setup that we might have. Although it's more towards the practicing side, but I'm sure those who are not in practice will also find it useful and they can adjust it to their requirements. So I'll share my screen now. Okay. Okay, so over the next half hour or so, I'm going to walk you through how AI modules are being integrated into company secretarial practice, not just as a theory, but as a working tool. We will look into use cases first, incorporation documents, AGMs, shared transactions, compliance filings, the everyday work of a Singapore Company Secretary or an Indian Company Secretary under the Companies Act. Then we'll open the hood and I'll show you how exactly we build these skills in plain English. No coding team, no tech experience. And then we'll close with a roadmap that you can actually start this week for your firm. So the good news is that you have not missed the boat on AI. You have, however, slightly missed the harbor. Anyways, it's never too late. Moving on to our first slide. Okay, So the first question, before we dive into the tooling, a moment on context, because the question we used to ask about AI was, does it belong in our work, in company secretarial work? The question has quite flipped. The question today is, does our work belong inside AI? And the answer, when you look at what we actually do, drafting the same resolution over and over again, filing the same forms, chasing the same deadlines, is that most of it does. We do fall under the inside the purview of AI. So what I want to set up here is that AI is no longer a novelty that you bolt on to look modern. It is becoming the operating layer for the procedures we already run. Let me show you why the timing is what it is. So 4 things have quietly shifted under our feet. Firstly, filings have gone digital, every regulator, wherever it may be. The workflow is fully online, and the expectation on turnaround is very, very tight. Second point is that volume is up. Companies that generates a lot of recurring documentations, AGM, share transactions, whenever investor come in, controllers, registers, officer changes, more companies, more transactions, more filings. The volume has literally become multifold. Third is governance scrutiny. Boards, auditors, regulators, everybody expects a tighter audit trail, version control, clear sign-offs, and on each and every document that we prepare. And lastly, clients want same-day results, same-day replies. However, talent supply, unfortunately, has not read the same memo. So let's start with the use of AI. For the purpose of this presentation, we are going to be using Anthropic's AI tool, Claude's Power Platform. All other tools are equally strong, and you can use any one which you wish with minor adjustments in your program. So what does AI actually look like when it's integrated properly into our practice? The operating module is 3 words. Module, skill, review. A skill is an English language playbook that tells Claude how to do company secretarial work, how to draft AGM documents, how to prepare allotment documents. Plugin is a folder that bundles related skills together so that your team can install one file instead of 15 different skills. And the process is you invoke the skill, you review the draft, you sign off, and then Claude drafts, you decide. But the statutory accountability doesn't move. Your professional responsibility as a named company secretary remains there. AI changes the drafting. It does not change who signs it off. We'll go with some examples, use case examples, how I am using it for my own purposes. Let me show you the first use case, which is incorporation. I type, okay, sorry. So I type in the Claude's Cowork tool, /COPSEC incorporation. The skill loads and Claude comes with exactly questions that anybody will ask me when I give them instruction. It will ask me, what is company name? What is the station number? Date of incorporation, registered office address, first directors, who are shareholders, any of them is nominee, and the financial year end. So I paste that in. This is the information I have elected it. This is actually real case scenario from my own use. I have elected the client data for the sake of confidentiality. So I paste the information in, and few seconds later, the whole incorporation set is there. That includes first director's resolution, constitution, consent director's director, disclosure document, register of allotments, register of members, share certificate, all internally consistent, all referencing to each other. So by giving one command, I'm getting the whole document set within minutes, if not seconds. Second use case, same for AGM documents. I just type in COPSEC AGM written means. Then skill asks me again the question, what is the scenario? Is it dormant? Is it exempt private company or audited? What is the year-end date? And audited or not audited? And I just key in the same information. These are the answers. And then the whole document set is prepared within seconds. Third use case scenario. So shared transactions are most of our pain comes from. This is the allotment flow. I type /COPSEC allot shares. The skill asks me whether there's existing authority to allot new shares. Who are the allottees? What is the number of shares? What is the class of shares? what is the consideration, and whether I need a set application form. And then I just give the information, the whole document set is prepared in minutes. Compliance filings are the fourth category. For example, audit exemption in Singapore. This is one of the trickier assessment because a small company test has to be applied alongside the grandfathering rule in 205B3. So I invoke the skill. I just type the skill name. It will ask me what is the annual revenue, employees for the financial assessment, same for 2 preceding years. We key in the data and the software will give me a report whether the company is exempt from audit or not. Before I get any further into demos and development story and how to develop these things that I am doing in seconds, that saves me hours, I need to spend a minute on the part that I wish you can take home and work on it. Always remember, AI augments the company secretary. It does not replace the company secretary. Your name is still on the filing. Your signature is still on the documents, on the certificates, and all your privacy regulations, company accountability, fiduciary duties to directors you advise, none of them transfers to a piece of software. So moving forward, these are the guardrails that I will recommend a secretarial firm to operate under to protect your own professional standards. Section 157 and 17 of Singapore Companies Act means that secretary and directors remain accountable for every output. So humans should always be in loop. Every AI draft should be reviewed, signed off, and returned with a clear reviewer trail. Second is data protection. All personal data is subject to data protection laws with consent, purpose, retention, disposal controls. We must always respect that and maintain that. Similarly, confidentiality, client separation, access control, and conflict screening must be preserved at all times. And lastly, your audit trails, your version history, your prompt logs, reviewer sign-offs should always be kept. And your engagement letters, it is recommended to update them to describe that you are using AI to prepare documents. However, it is being reviewed by a senior partner or the person in charge. This is to limit your responsibility. So remember, every AI generated document is a first draft, and the company secretary remains the author of the record. He is the author of the document. Now coming to the interesting part. Part two, how did we bring these skills, the examples that you saw a few minutes ago? This is where most AI webinars wrap up. You get a slick demo, you nod, you think impressive, and you go back to your desk when nothing changes. You keep doing things the way you were doing. I'm going to do the opposite. I'm going to open the hood and show you how we actually build these skills. The incorporation one, the AGM one, allotment, no coding team, no developer, no vendor, everything done by a company secretary on his own desk. So it took about 10 hours of senior time spent across 2 weeks per skill. If you can write an internal procedure memo for a trainee, you can build one of these skills that I showed you just now. I'll show you exactly how. Let's start with building blocks. What is a skill? At the level that matters to you. A skill is a playbook for Claude written in plain English. It lives in a single file called skill.md. It has 4 parts, a short name, which becomes the / command suffix that you will use. Second, description that will trigger the skill, like certain keywords, certain phrases that will set it off. Third is step-by-step instructions. And fourth is optional, your own firm's template, for example, outputs, inputs that you normally use in Word file that you have, you copy and paste and change in most of the times. So that's it. No code, no special syntax, no experience is needed. You can do it simply by yourself. The next layer up is plugin. Plugin is a folder which bundles related skills together so that your team installs one thing, not a lot of small skills. So it's one stop installer for a lot of skills together. Inside the folder, here you see there is a tiny manifest file that called plugin.json, which I'll show in a moment. There's a skills folder with one subfolder per skill, each containing its own skill MD. There's optional command folder where you can register your shortcuts, like the words that will trigger that action. This whole structure is just plain folders and plain text files. When plugin is finished, you can get a single plugin file, one installer, one version number, one update pathway for everyone in your organization. So now, how do you actually build one of these skills? The answer is you need to have a guided conversation with Claude. 5 phases, all in simple English. Phase 1 is discovery. You tell Claude what you want the skill to do. Phase 2, component planning. Claude proposes what goes in. Phase 3, design question. Claude asks you what is needed to know, one at a time, for it to work. Phase 4, implementation. Claude write all the skills MD file that we just discussed. Phase 5, review and package. You test the skill, wrap it as one single plugin file, and throughout all 5 phases, use in plain English. You always reply or give commands in plain English. No coding required, no technical instruction required. Claude handles everything technical. Let me walk through each phase with an actual transcript, how we go through these 4-5 phases. Phase 1, discovery. I open Cowork and tell Claude, I want to create a skill for AGM by written means for Singapore private companies. Claude doesn't jump into code. It comes back with 3 scoping questions. Should the skill support all 3 scenarios, dormant, audit exempt, or audited? Do I want a single combined output or separate documents per resolution? And should it pull the member from existing members file or ask for it in line? I answer in one line, all 3 scenarios, separate document, ask for the member list in line for now. So that's my reply, plain English. And then this is the part of the meeting where if I would had a human consultant, I'll already be on my 3rd coffee and 2nd PowerPoint revision. But for Claude, it just moves to the next stage, very quick. Phase 2 is component planning. And this is where Claude saves you from our engineering. Claude comes back and says, for AGM written means, I suggest the plugin has one skill, that is AGM written means, one shortcut / copsec AGM written means, and a small reference file with blank resolution template that your firm already uses. Nothing else is needed. We do not need a connector yet, we don't need a software yet. That last line is important. Claude actively tells you what not to build. No hooks, no MCP, no connectors, no extra bells. Keep the final version type. So I say, okay, let's get to that. We move to phase 3. Then it moves to next phase. Phase 3 is where the expertise gets captured. Claude asks me the questions it needs to write the skill, one at a time in plain English. Question 1 of 5, what word should trigger the skill? AGM by written means, MIW, 184G notice, accounts approval, audit exempt AGM, 205C statement. I add AGM dormant to the list. So all these plus I can add my input. Then question 2, which companies etc. should the skill cite on each output? It gives you suggestions of different sections applicable to Singapore Companies Act. Then it asks you to approve or change those section references. You can amend if needed. Phase 4 is where Claude actually writes the code. And this is where part people worry about, because up until now, everything was a talk, conversation, and now there's a file. But there's one thing, the file is still in plain English. If you see the output, these are actual output from the software. Claude writes skill MD and write the name, description, trigger words, the numbered steps that I gave it. And I read it like I read a procedure memo for a new hire. If any step is unclear, I ask Claude to rephrase it. If something is missing, I ask you to add it. No code to review, no syntax file to fight, just the firm's procedure. And once I'm satisfied, just say save it. And that's it. Phase 5, review and package. Claude says, let's test the skill. And then I invoke the skill with the sample documents, test it, then I say, and then it's just packaging will be completed in the form of a plugin that is a combination of multiple skills. You can put a version number if you wish, it's recommended. So there are 4 parts of skill MD file: name, description, instructions, and references. This is to recap what we discussed. So every skill must be, this is a skill to prepare director documents. That's the first point. Second, description triggers. So what should it do? It should prepare 3 documents: resolution, consent, disclosures. Triggers, what word would trigger this skill? We can predefine it, like director appointment or change in directors or something like that. Instructions, that's why you tell Claude what it should do. Prepare these 3 documents. And references and template. These are optional but recommended. You can upload your existing template and Claude will learn from it and use future documents in the same template. As easy as that. JSON file is again the version details for the software. If you do not want to be technical, you can skip that. There's nothing that concerns you. This is just for information purpose only. Again, there's a name, there's a version, there's a description, there's an author name, that's your name and your firm name, and keywords that help people find this plugin. So these are the last piece of numbering is / commands. These are the one-line shortcuts that we usually use. You can change it to yourself, your preferences, your requirements, such as COPSEC is the name of my plugin. Incorporate is a section I give when I want to incorporate a new company. AGM, allot shares, share transfer, notice of controller, which you can either type or select from a drop-down box in your plugin if you're using Claude. So these are technically optional. But in practice, they are muscle memory that your junior staff will use to prepare documents because they'll go and click that and use that, invoke that skill. So once you have done with your development of this plugin or skill, you need to test it. So when you test a new skill for the first time, exactly 3 questions to ask. First question, did it trigger? Type one of the phrases from a description. If Claude invokes the skill automatically, your description is written well. If not, description need more trigger phrases or more refinement. Second, once you have given the trigger, did it ask the right question? Skill should ask you for information you actually have in your intake, not invented fields. So if it asks the wrong question, go back and edit phase 3 of the steps. And third, did it cite the right law? Every output paragraph should reference to right company's section. If citation is missing, add it to the steps. You can tell Claude that, okay, this is wrong and change this and it will update for you. Once the skill is built and tested, how do you pass it to your rest of the team members? So there are 3 tiers. One is private. You can keep the plugin file on your firm's shared drive. Every company secretary installs in CoWork once and updated in the file name. Best for solo practitioner and small firms. Tier 2 is internal marketplace. You can host the plugin on internal intranet or GitHub if you have. Team members can go and download it from there and install it. This is best for multi-partner firms with some IT support. And tier 3 is public or cross firms where you can sell your skills if need be. Best for, association, platforms, and vendors. Now, how does a firm decide which skill actually makes it into production? You treat skills same way you treat your templates plus a version number. So there are 5 steps. Propose, take the company secretary lead a 1-page brief on what the skill does when it triggers, which company section it cites, and the which template to use. Draft, any output is to be prepared and reviewed after that. So you just use a skill, propose a skill, draft by AI, then you review the documents. Then if any changes, you update your changes into the plugin. If not, you approve that this is the approved version. We can start using it. The managing partner signs off. You can put a plugin version if you wish. And then lastly, but most importantly, you have to monitor it because there might be some things that you have missed and didn't come in the first test or first few tests. So monthly quality check should be done and you see how much is the edit rate. It will definitely go down, rework rate, rejection rate, and if anything needs review. Okay, so now coming to the timing, people always ask, how long did this really take to develop? So let me give you actual numbers from the AGM skill. First day, it took me 2 hours. Discovery, component planning, 30-minute cover conversation, and partner review the scope. Day 2, 3 hours. Design questions, implementation. Cloud writes the skill MD, partner reviews the plain English draft. Day 3, 2 hours. Test on 3 historical AGM engagements. Log 7 small edits, update the files. Day 4, 1 hour. Test on 2 more engagements, 0 edits, and I package as version 0.10. Week 2, ongoing. First 10 live users done by junior staff. Partner reviews every output. Edit rate about 10%. And then month 2, ongoing. Now edit rate is down to 4%. Then we promoted it to version 1.0.0. If you want concrete 2-week checklist for your own first skill, here it is. Week 1 is discovery and first draft. Pick one procedure your firms run weekly. AGM, name change, allotment, anything that's high volume, low complexity. Write a 1-page brief, what the skill does, when it triggers, which companies sections are applicable. Open Cowork, invoke your skill, or simply say, I want to build a plugin. Answer your Claude's phase 1 questions in plain English, and then it will develop a small piece of skill or plugin for you to start with. Week 2 is review, test, and package. Review each phase 3 design question, answer only what you know, read phase 4 draft carefully, test with 3 historical engagement, for example, log every edit, what you're editing in the output. Package in the phase 5, share with one partner first or one staff first, let them work on it. So before I move on, 1 minute on why any of these matters for the future of your practice or for who are not in practice for a job. A generic AI tool, no matter how good, cannot match your firm's wording, your firm's checklist, your firm's statutory interpretation. Every company secretarial firm runs a unique mix of procedure. Only way to capture is that to build skills specific to your requirement, to your firm, your client, your preferences. Your partners already know the know-how. A skill is the fastest way to put that know-how into a form an AI or a staff can reuse consistently. And the skills that you build today become two things: a durable competitive advantage and an onboarding manual for next generation of company secretaries you will hire. Okay, all right. Case study time, different shape of problem, same co-work. I want to show you a specific example of non-document workflow that was built by a partner at our COPSIC firm for its own internal use. So it's not about documentation now. Now we're moving to the practical aspects of running a practice or a group of companies. It's a live client management database, one tool that the firm uses every single day to keep track of its clients, their filings, their deadlines, and the risk exposure. The important thing about this example is that it was not built by a developer. It was built by a corporate secretary in a co-work conversation over a handful of afternoons. No coding team, no vendor, no recurring license fee. Let me walk you through the problem first, then the tool, and then how it came together. The starting point was a mess. And if you run a corporate secretarial firm, it's probably your mess too. Problem 1, data is scattered across PDFs. Every client's company particularly to separate database file, PDF, or a folder, or a shared drive, or our email folders. Every check-in meant opening the right PDF first. Problem 2, deadlines missed, year-end, annual return, AGM deadlines were tracked in a memory, or Excel, or via email threads. Never a single source of truth. Problem 3, nominee director list was invisible. Many companies had a nominee director, meaning that firm's own staff were resident directors in Singapore, but there was no way to see at a glance which of these companies were overdue. Problem 4, emails typed one at a time, sent to wrong client, wrong addressing, wrong year-end. Each reminder, each mail, each KYC request drafted from the scratch and was highly labor intensive to check. So this is what the AI tool looks now, which was developed in-house over cloud conversation. One table, it's actually a browser file. It's actually a HTML file. You can install anywhere, run from anywhere without hosting on a web server, without paying an additional hosting fee. So this is what it looks like. One table, hundreds of client, real database. The originally it has more than 200 to 250 clients, 17 columns per client, but now it's color coded at a glance. So status, we have set up our own markers, green for active, red for struck off, amber for inactive. Last file FYE, financial year end, is the colored pill. Green if filed within 12 months, amber between 12 to 19, red beyond 19. So you can see which one are in compliance, compliance is coming soon, or compliance is overdue. Again, nominee director, green pill if the firm staff is a resident director, gray otherwise. And the rows you see in bold, those are nightmare combination. Financial year end overdue, and we have a local director on board from our side. That is the highest firm risk exposure we have. And for now, for the first time, it is visible at a glance. I'm sorry. So the top of the page is a live dashboard, 5 stat tiles, total clients, how many have a nominee director, how many have an email on file, how many are red on financial year end, how many are amber. Below that, there are filter chips. Click financial year overdue and table filters down to nominee 35 red rows. Click nominee yes, You see only non-direct engagement, where the filing is overdue. And then together you get the each exact shortlist of client that needs you to call today because you're director on the board. At the bottom of that filtered view, there's a single button, bulk email all 35. One click, 35 pre-filled email drafts, each with right client, right subject, right email addresses, and right company exec references. It's a partner's Monday morning in one click. Further, you can click email on any row, and this compose view opens. Recipient pre-filled form for the client from the client's email field, CC to the managing partner, automatic every single time, so no time partner will be missed. Because we have all sent the mail that should have been CC'd, we forgot to CC. So AI will not forget that. Subject is pre-filled in each case. Company name, UEN, template type, your ERN automatically calculated. You do not have to worry that data is wrong there. Signature block is on behalf of the firm, and you just click on open an email app. The button hands draft to your default mailing client on your computer, so you can add a personal line if you wish before you hit send. Okay, bulk send is where this tool really earns its keep. Select 15 rows, let's say 15 most overdue files and clients, click send annual compliance bulk. 15 email drafts pop up in your mail app within seconds. Each one pre-addressed to right client, each one with same template body, but specific company name, UEN, year-end date, and deadlines. Each one CC to the managing partner automatically. You walk through them, add your personal line again if you want, and hit send. 15 client properly reminded, consistent wording in about 5 minutes. And then the audit trail is in a sent folder. Each of them is visible. So at our firm, we're using 4 templates that cover most of our outbound emails. Template 1, mails received. It's triggered when a mail comes at our registered office address if client is using our address. Subject is pre-filled with company name and mail date, as well as the addresses. Template 2, annual compliances. One-click reminder to client about upcoming AGM and written deadlines, citing the right section. Template 3 is KYC update, sent annually or when the firm detects a change in your expired documents or any KYC that should have been updated by now. Includes the KYC form link from the firm and response timeline. Template 4 is others, blank body, just subject and recipient pre-filled from company row. Useful for one-off queries and auto CC plus bulk send for any matter that you might want to reach out to client to consistently. So how was this actually built? 4 afternoons in co-work. That's how it was done. Let me walk through the specifics because this is what non-developer never gets to see. Day 1 morning, discovery, a 20-minute conversation with Claude, describe the problem, uploaded 5 sample base file from client folder. Day 1 afternoon, first passer, Claude wrote a PDF that extracted 17 fields from business profile, company name, decision number, status, officer, shareholder, your year-end, AGM date, audit firm name. Day 2, edge cases. So real-world PDFs fight back. Date formatting will be DD, MMYY, sometimes DD, YYY. Business activities showing up where year-end should be. Section in the wrong sections were there. Shared classes were mixed between each other. Currency was between each other. Additional comma will just spoil your whole client database that we just looked at. So we just fixed those by conversation with Claude, English conversation. Day 3 features. And day 4 and ongoing are the emails that we did. So without taking much of your time, let me give you a preview of what your firm or your company can build in a week. 5 practical setting points. Start with PDFs or data that you already have. In Singapore, Accra Biz file is the one. Wherever your company, whatever your company open 50 times a week, or whatever you are doing regularly on the regular basis, use those PDFs and start with those. Then 2, describe the columns you wish you had at a glance. You tell Claude, this is what I want to see. Do not engineer data model. Let Claude do it. Just give description what you want to see. Third, you can always ask Claude to color code what actually matters to you, like overdue items or upcoming items. As per your preference, if you're VIP clients, you can add over there, any section over there. Just color code the whole thing that is visible in one go. And last but not least, add email templates that you wish to use to reach out to client to build this kind of AI database for your for your internal control. So this gives you consistency for free. And last, iterate weekly. The database grows one PDF at a time. You will have new data every week. So just update that data into that cloud and it will automatically update your HTML file or control file. Automation. So again, this is something tricky. Before we land with the adoption roadmap, a brief detour. Because if I stop here, you will go home and with the impression that AI is only that about documentation databases. That would be wrong. AI can automate a lot of things, but because of professional liability, I will not recommend automating your filings. But you can switch to browser. Co-work lives on desktop, but cloud also lives on a browser. So think about how much of your work is actually in browser tabs: MCA for filings, bank portal, client portal, bookkeeping tabs, Gmail, Outlook, government website. Each one a different login, different logout, different frustration. Claude for Chrome plugs into that. You can ask it to draft and reply. You can fetch a client's data from MCA portal if you wish, summarize changes in last year, or fill up a form in a portal. But I will not recommend it for filing. This is the example that they always give. If you authorize, so what I did, I went to an online shopping platform and give Claude instruction that add every t-shirt in S size, in X color, red color, that's below $20. And it added everything to my cart. So I could have given him my card details that would have ordered for me as well. So similarly, Claude can do filings for you, but please do not do it because of professional liability. You have to recheck. Filing should be manual. Well, we're coming almost to the end of our presentation. So what are the other use cases that we can use for under AI? Let's widen the lens one more level. So far, I have shown you the COPSEC plugin, specific skills of Companies Act, procedure, client database, and then there's only the part of AI that looks like practice we are used to. Other part of AI is general assistant for the whole firm. And this is where a lot of day-to-day productivity quality goes up. 4 categories worth mentioning beyond the COPSEC skill or database are client communication, draft replies to routine queries, automated reminders of filing deadlines, welcome email for new engagements, follow-ups you will never quite get to. Second is ESOP, capital maintenance, tracking grants, vesting schedules, exercises, dilutions, the cap table that your founders need to have a look when they need. Third one is data extraction, summaries, schedule reports, pull numbers out of statements, summarize board papers, generate monthly reports. Lastly, review, search, reconciliation, audit, cross-checking document against registers, reconciling bank statements, ledgers, preparing audit schedules. So these are the things that actually we are using. But always remember, AI does not make many mistakes, which is exactly what your signature value never goes away. Moving on to next slide. Okay, so right, home stretch. The adoption roadmap from pilot to production in 30 days. It can be done via three phases. I want to give you something concrete that you can put on your calendar, not a wish list, not a framework, an actual month with specific activity in each 10-day block that takes your firm from. We might try AI, but we're using it on live engagements. First is pilot, 10 days ISO, as I mentioned. Phase 1, that's the 1 to 10 pilot. Select one low-risk module, ideally AGM or standard documentation. Run it on 5 live engagements with the reviewer watching. Log every edit that the reviewer makes. That's your correction backlog. Measure 3 things: time per document, edit rate, error rate. Sorry. Phase 2 is 11 to 20 playbook. Modify the firm's review checklist for that module. Expand the same to second module. Train the wider team on the review, not drafting. The team is not learning AI. It's learning to read AI drafts critically. So just review drafting. Do not teach them how to do AI because it will be a waste of effort, doubling of efforts. Phase 3, days 21 to 30, production. Roll the modules out across in-scope engagements. Publish a quarterly quality dashboard to the managing partner. Review logs monthly. So we are at the end. Let me wrap my presentation with 5 key takeaways. 1, a clear mental model of how AI module map to the company's act life cycle. Two, worked invocation flows across incorporation, AGM, share transaction, filings. Three, a non-developer walkthrough of the 5-phase process to build your own skills and plugin. Four, the wider automation use case beyond concept drafting. Five, a 30-day pilot from playbook to production, adoption roadmap that you can start this week. That's the theory. Rest is your decision. And one last thing before I leave. You have just sat through an hour of me talking about AI in corporate practice and seems fair to come clean. These slides are made with AI. The script I've been using for this presentation are drafted by AI. Client database mockup built with AI. Document samples generated by the actual plugin automatically by AI. Even some of jokes that I put in, well, most of them were AI's first draft. Everything in the session that we built the way I have been telling you to build things by using AI. So if the slide looks polished, AI gets the credit. If there's a typo anywhere in this deck, there's a professional who signed it off, and that professional is negatively me. So the real takeaway is that if you like what you saw, you can do all of it yourself, starting today, not tomorrow. Thank you. Back to you, Sonu.
Great. Well, that's quite an elaborate presentation, and I'm sure our audience is going to benefit. In case you are looking for the presentation, you still want it, it would be available on our YouTube channel. The entire webinar would be uploaded there, so it would be available. And I think one point that is very clear after this presentation is it has brought to the fore an important aspect, like the future of the profession lies in effectively combining the domain expertise with technological capabilities. And you did mention that no coding, no tech, everything was done by a company secretary. So besides enhancing efficiency and accuracy, AI will give us an opportunity to move on to more strategic roles. And I think I'll bring Priya's point, I mean, whatever Priya had mentioned earlier, that it is an opportunity to ease our work, to ease our life. And yes, we were not looking for this opportunity. It has just come to us, and we should be a little more open to accepting this and integrating this in our lives. Would it be right to say that let AI do what it does best so that us professionals can actually focus on what we can only do? Like make it a 50-50 thing. 50% AI led driven things and 50% the human-led work, where AI does all the time consuming and routine, repetitive and data work. And focus more on, the decision making, the ethical part, the oversight and, the management and all of that, right? I'm sure all of us would agree. This is how we can maybe effectively use the combination. Okay, all right. Sorry, someone was saying something?
No, I just wanted to echo what you said, Sonu. We are actually living in a very interesting time, Sonu, where there's a lot of disruption taking place around us, be it legal profession or company secretary profession.
Yes.
And it's interesting that we are talking about this because a few weeks ago, some of us legal professionals were there in a legal conference here in Singapore. And the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court said something very interesting. And that resonated with me. And what he said, that AI is not going to replace, lawyers or professionals, but lawyers or professionals who embrace AI are going to replace those who do not.
Absolutely.
I think that really is telling and speaks a lot about what Nitish and you have just covered over the last couple of minutes.
I think I just have one word for it, period. This is what it is supposed to be. Okay, all right. On that note, let's now move on to a more interactive discussion and explore the entire professional landscape woven around all of what has been discussed so far. There's already so much to take away. So if I put it this way, the CS of yesterday ensured compliance. The CS of today enables governance. And the CS of tomorrow will shape strategy. So this one is for you, Hemiksha. How do you see this, and how do you balance being a business enabler while maintaining strong governance?
Thank you, Sonu. This is a brilliant question. I mean, speaking of myself, when I started CS, my first day as CS in a corporate, right, at Colgate, it was only about like boardroom, board papers, shareholders, annual report, governance, right? It was not, it was like very limited. Probably it was also my start of my career, right? But then eventually, when I saw a decade down, it was more about governance, compliance tools coming across, right? The BSR reports back then, which is now kind of ESG and all of those reportings, right? But obviously, all of this is changing. The strategies are changing, the future is changing, and the role of CS has evolved so much that we have to move beyond the traditional compliances, right? We are now acting more as a strategic advisor. We no longer call ourselves as compliance managers or legal managers. We call ourselves as business partners, right? Because we work shoulder to shoulder with every single business, colleagues in our industries, right? And I would say it's not sufficient anymore to just act as a custodian of statutory requirements, right? The expectation is that we equally contribute, we meaningfully contribute to the decision making. We ensure that there's good governance, there's good risk management, tools around us, and that we are working towards the organization strategy, the organization goal, right? Now, if I speak of myself, I think how we pivot towards being a business enabler rather than just limiting ourselves to governance, what really helped me was an early engagement with your business partners, right? With your stakeholders internally. And not just internally, I would say even externally for that matter. Today, as CS professionals, as lawyers, as in-house counsels, we all we are expected to work directly face to face with our third parties, whether it's consulting firms in an M&A or a restructuring deal with the bankers, right? It's not just limited to a limited set of compliances. It's gone way beyond all of that, right? So tagging on early with your business partners, with your internal stakeholders, it actually helps us to identify and fix any regulatory risks, any governance risks that we could kind of, foresee that could potentially become a constraint for us in any of the projects that we are on, right? So I think it helps us as professionals to be more proactive, be prepared, right? And be that safeguards rather than active, rather than being reactive, I would say. Okay. And obviously, as in-house counsels, we wear multiple hats all of the time, right? We act as governance professionals, the corporate secretarial professionals, as legal counsels, and as business partners, as I said, right? But I don't view governance as a barrier, right? Like even Dinesh mentioned in the beginning, it's not, I think he said it's not a choice, right? Governance is not a choice, compliance is not a choice, that's not an option, so to say, right? So I think creating that awareness by being into compliance professions, I think it's our primary responsibility to ensure that we create enough awareness so that and that could only happen when we are acting towards a solution oriented mindset, right? If we have that right mindset to kind of navigate through the challenges that are on the table, right? From moving to saying, hey, no, this can't be done, or this cannot be done, or this can't happen, or you can't do this. From moving that no attitude to a yes, and providing the right safeguards, right? Providing that guardrails for them, the framework within which a company can operate. So I think those are few of the enablers that help us to kind of, become better better business partners, I would say. And you also picked, Sonu, earlier in our discussion about the integrity, the ethics part. Very briefly, you mentioned about ethics, right? And I would emphasize here, as company secretaries, our foundation is built on independence, on integrity, right? So I think we, as CS, should have the ability to raise the right flags at the right time, to challenge constructively, whether it is our peers, whether it is our the leadership teams, or whether even if at a board level, right? What is right and has to be done in the right way, right? So I think particularly picking up the right conflicts at the right time with the leadership level when needed to ensure that governance is not compromised, right? And when you bring those values on the table for your businesses, that's where you are valued as a business partner. So I think for me, over a time, as I see the processes, it's completely shifted. The CS role has evolved, right? More earlier it used to be like a process driven, a tick in the box thing. and versus today where it's more of a value driven opportunity for us. So I think that's what I would say. And practically speaking of myself, as CS, the knowledge, the foundation that we had created for ourselves by doing, being a qualified CS, it helps us in so many ways today as in-house counsels. It helps us, pick on the right points with finance functions, with your internal audits, where a CS sits on the table to discuss the enterprise risks, that's there for an organization. So ERMs is a big piece of our portfolio today as in-house compliance officers, right? We work very closely with our strategy teams, be it on the M&A side, on the restructuring. They can't kick off without a CS involvement, right? Be it any organization in India, outside of India, right? CS has to be one of the first primary stakeholder in all the M&As and restructuring projects. Likewise, even supply chain, with the way the economy is trending, the whole lot of force majeure issues. As CS, we have to be the watchdogs towards all of the risk that a corporate is exposed today in terms of reporting, right? Whether it's supply chain disruption, whether it's you're not able to meet the customer requirements. So I think CS role today integrates into several functions. And I would say that is where, the future is bright for CS in India, outside of India. Multiple avenues are rather opening up. And as we discussed earlier with Nitish's presentation, right? The more we integrate AI into our function, the more we would be able to better utilize our time, spend less time on routine matters and focus more on core matters and decision making.
Great. I think this whole presentation that Nitish has given, that's going to be our base today for the questions, because it's kind of set the tone of how the role would evolve a little more. Now, strategy has been the core of a company secretary. We've studied it all, and it's all in there. That's been underpinned in our qualification and all of that. It's time now that it is seen outside. So we've done compliance, we've become governance professionals, and now we need to be just seen as strategic advisors. And I think one point that has really stuck with me is when Himiksha said, start early, tag early on with business enablers. That makes it all pretty easy and a little more focused that way. Okay, because we're talking about business, Dinesh, from an entrepreneur's perspective, how conducive is Singapore to long-term business opportunities in terms of stability and reliability amidst this growing geopolitical climate today? You're on mute.
Yeah, sorry. So it's a very complex and tricky questions to comment on. It's a personal view of mine. See, geopolitically, everything is changing. Like earlier, Nitish AI, because everybody is changing very fast. So AI is changing. Talk about Singapore, like Singapore ranks #1 in ease of doing business. So like to incorporate a company, it's like a one-day job. Nitish will agree with me. It's not like we take 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 1 month, nothing. It's just a one day. So sometimes even we create a company on the day of Diwali or on 1st January, whichever auspicious day you want to create, you can create a company in Singapore. So that's the resilience I can say is there with the Singapore. And the country has cultivated an environment where transparency is the norm. Regulatory frameworks are world class. And business can scale with the speed and confidence. So, like I said, it's one day to open a company, which is very rare across the globe in any other jurisdictions. Same thing to start the business, you don't need multiple licenses and approvals unless you are in a certain different industries. But majority of the industries that do not require licenses and approvals. So after opening, the moment you open the bank account, your business is up and running. So you don't need to go to anywhere. Certain compliances like AGM, which is compulsory, whether it is private company or not in India. But if you see in Singapore, it's not compulsory to hold the AGM for private companies. It's up to the choice of the management whether they want to go or not. Certain exemptions are there for them. Same thing for audits. So up to $10 million turnover, you are exempted from audit. If it is a small company, it's exempted from multiple filings also. So I said it's a very ease of doing business on a practical note when we are operating on a day-to-day basis. Geopolitical tensions has changed, like Gulf has chopped the things. So across the globe, the prices has risen, the business has stopped. But if you come to Singapore, you don't see that much impact. Like you don't see much impact in India also. So similar way, I can say the resilient is there, wherein it's not affecting too much. The city state is very small, and most of the time the company are incorporated businesses are done on a day-to-day basis. It's not 1 month, 3 months, 6 months deadlines, compliances. There are only two compliance which you need to do and which is very easy to do. I'm not saying, but it has to be done. Means if the compliance is there, you can't say, oh, I missed and I forgot it. Then you have to start with the penalties and prosecutions. So from the resilient point of view, I say it's absolutely resilient and very fast to operate and very adaptive to the new changes. Like so, AGM change has come up recently. Means I'm not saying very recent, but it's recently. Same thing, the rubber stamp. So earlier, like when we incorporated in 2015, the rubber stamp was compulsory for all the documents which you issue, even the certificates and everything, which is now not compulsory in Singapore. So you can just sign the documents and submit it anywhere. So these are the, I guess, small changes. It makes the businessman or entrepreneur's life very easy, and that helps the business to grow very fast. Thank you.
Okay, this is just out of curiosity. How different? What is the major difference between the Indian Companies Act and the Singapore Companies Act? I mean, as a company secretary from India, of course, you have to understand the laws of the land if you are to operate in a different jurisdiction. But is it like way too different, or is it kind of quite easy to,
It's I can say almost like 40% easier than Indian law.
easier? Okay.
Easy. So less
Okay.
compliances and like you can study also very fast. Certain sections, you can easily do the practice.
Okay.
Like
Great.
how Nitish has highlighted that certain things you can automate, which is very difficult for Indian situation because in India you have to do KYC with photographs of the office and all, which is not compulsory in Singapore.
Nitish's presentation is going to be the highlight of the stage. Okay, so now that we're talking about the regulatory part, Priya, your views would be very important here. The Singaporean regulatory landscape for someone looking to enter the market, how is that? And I think Himiksha, you can then kind of just supplement.
Sure. So Sonu, I think when we talk about the Singaporean regulatory landscape, we also have to understand Singapore's cultural landscape. It's a multicultural, ethnically diverse country, and mostly people. We have three different kind of ethnicities. We have the Chinese, Malay, and Indian. So and the reason I'm mentioning that is because to understand, if you're dealing with the regulators, policymakers, external stakeholders, you need to be sensitive and understand the cultural nuances. What we call in our professional world, business etiquettes as well. So how you handshake, how you hand over your business card to a professional or a regulator is very, very important. You need to do it right. Otherwise, it could just be very counterproductive to you. So I just want to spend maybe about a few minutes in sharing my learnings from when I first landed in Singapore 9 years ago. Very fresh out of India and very accustomed to how things work in India. When I landed here, the one thing that I realized was that when you, especially in the case of Singaporean Chinese, you need to take the name correctly, because what really happens here is that people have an English name and a Chinese name. And I would highly recommend that anybody who's interacting with someone here, they should clarify that very politely by which name they would want to be called, because this is really, really important, and it can kind of make or break a meeting, right? Secondly, in terms of shaking hands, it's a very important protocol here, but then how gently you shake hands is again very different across three different kind of ethnicities. For example, the Chinese men generally have a habit of doing a light handshake, while maybe the Malay will do a salam, a bow, probably. And of course, in the Indian culture, we do handshake and we do namaste as well. So there are some different flavors of how you greet and introduce each other. For women, generally the same rules, but then maybe for Malay women, you could probably avoid handshaking and do a salam. And similarly for Indian, women, you could just do a namaste as well. But majority of the times, it's in some cultures it's not typical to touch through either handshake or otherwise. So we need to be mindful of that. I want to touch on titles, which are very, very important. So when you're exchanging business cards here, it's considered to be a very important part of the business etiquette here. And although in some countries, like it's very formal, like in Japan and China, but in Singapore also, you need to keep a few things in mind. Firstly, it's very, very important that you address the person with the correct name, as I said, by the Western name, which is on their cards. And then it could be, that there's a common business practice. I'm sure that when you are giving the business card, you have to use both your hands. And when you give and receive, exactly the same way. And then once you're in a formal meeting set up, especially with the government officials, regulators, or industry set up, what I have observed here is that people keep the business cards in front of them till the meeting ends. So you just don't put it in your pocket. You just put it on the table while you're in the meeting, and you allow the attendees to appropriately address each other while you're in the meeting, right? In some of the meetings, I've also observed that in Singapore, people are switching to digital cards. People are concerned about the environment, so they're no more carrying their printed cards, but then they have digital cards or QR code enabled cards, which they use. There's another very important point which I have observed in the Singaporean context, which is punctuality. It is the key to any meeting, and people appreciate it when you arrive in a business meeting on time. And the expectation here in Singapore is that you arrive for the meeting about 5 to 10 minutes early than the scheduled time. And when we do business with the Singaporean folks, or if you have clients who are Singapore-based clients, the procedures for the doing of business are pretty much standardized, which makes it very easier to do business. But then there's not a lot of red tapeism. I think Dinesh mentioned that. But then we have to keep in mind that people out here don't like small talk. They would rather stick to order of the business, and then once they are done with the meeting, it's a formal close of the meeting. So I think being mindful of some of these small subtleties and nuances is very important when you are working in a cross-cultural environment. Of course, Hamiksha spoke about integrity. I think that really is foundational to us as corporate professionals. We are, in some companies, the title given to the professional is ethics advisors, or your trusted advisors within the company. So your role is evolving from being purely compliance-driven professional to a trusted business partner who's just being in the journey with the organization. So one thing that I have observed here is that similar to other markets, there are rules and regulations around what can be gifted, and it could be that gifts are an essential part of the relationship, but then we have to be really, really mindful of the legal and ethics rule that are applicable in that environment. And it could be a small item, it could be even a coffee or whatever, but we have to be mindful of what the rules and regulations are for a particular transaction. So I think those are the few things that I wanted to highlight. But then moving on to Sonu, the question that you asked about the regulatory environment as such. I'd say that the regulatory landscape in Singapore is widely regarded as a gold standard, if I may make that statement. And the reason I'm saying that is that they do a very good job at balancing innovation with regulation. Of course, in the regulatory landscape, we always say that regulation is not able to keep pace with that evolving technology trends. It always happens, right? But then what Singapore really does well is balancing And they have this innovation first philosophy, which I think is commendable. When you talk about, Dinesh mentioned about, the pro business measures and approaches, I think the fact that they want to promote business, they want to attract a lot of foreign investment. So their philosophy is innovation first. And when it comes to policy and regulation, they are considered to be a thought leader in the region. And most of the ASEAN countries actually look up to Singapore for in the policy landscape. And Singapore is, by the way, going to be the chair for the ASEAN next year. So they are focusing a lot on a number of initiatives that they can drive throughout the region. I want to kind of maybe spend some time on a few themes that I have seen here in terms of regulation, right? What is the core philosophy of the government? As I said, it's smart regulation, a regulation that doesn't stifle innovation. And they also do a beautiful work in the space of consultation, which is basically regulators like the Monetary Authority of Singapore, which is the financial service regulator, or ACRA in our case, they frequently issue a lot of consultation papers and they get a lot of industry feedback. And what it really helps in doing is that all the rules and regulations are reflective of the industry approach and reviews. And the codification that happens after those is really simple because the industry has had a voice in the actual rulemaking process. So I think that ensures that your regulations are commercially viable and they also maintain your systemic stability within the country, right? The other big theme that I've seen, apart from being more consultative, is again pro-business approach. And in the regulatory landscape over the last 1 year, we've seen 3 focus areas that the government has been focusing a lot in terms of pro-innovation approach. One, artificial intelligence. I think, Nitish, you just set the stage in terms of how important it is for professionals to embrace. But I think even the Singapore government is placing a lot of focus on governance around artificial intelligence, and they are not really coming out with hard laws as has been done in other markets like the EU, but then they're coming up with soft voluntary guidelines. So they have the voluntary AI ethics guidelines. They do a lot of regulatory sandboxing approach. This is all to make sure that the people have clear expectations, particularly in some sensitive sectors like financial services or health sector, right? And then they have different model risk governance frameworks around AI, risk management practices, all to ensure that when a firm deploys AI, it is able to explain how those decisions were taken to the consumers, especially when we are talking about high risk sectors, right? So that theme I have seen particularly very relevant in Singapore, and government taking a pro-innovation approach when it comes to AI, but also setting the guardrails, soft guardrails, voluntary approach to make sure people know the expectations. Secondly, very importantly, Singapore is positioning itself as Asia's green finance hub. And I think for CS professional, that would be a great opportunity to basically map what the regulations and requirements are around sustainability. For example, Singapore is one of the very few countries where both large listed companies and non-listed companies are actually now required to provide climate-related financial disclosures. And this is in compliance with the international sustainability standards. So I think we professionals have a natural inkling to understand what the nuances are and then help company comply with some of those requirements. And because there's a lot of focus from Singapore on going green and through their commitments to the different green requirements. So I think that would be an important kind of area to explore. Again, there's also a lot of scrutiny within Singapore on ESG, what we call anti-greenwashing, which is basically ESG fund labels are kind of checked to ensure that the investments are backed with verifiable data. Finally, the last point I wanted to make was around operational resilience and cybersecurity. And this is because I come from that space. I work for a tech company, and we see a lot of movement around cybersecurity. And we've spoken about geopolitical tensions in this conversation. And in response to the global sophisticated cyber attacks that are happening around us, especially espionage cases, nation state actors targeting critical systems. So Singapore has been kind of working very hard. The government has been working very hard on tightening the Cybersecurity Act legislation. Again, they are focusing more on the critical sectors, be it banks, the energy sector, telecom, and healthcare sectors. And that again is an opportunity for governance professionals to see how they can plug themselves into those emerging requirements and translate them for the organizations that are impacted by those requirements. Again, there are different sector specific requirements, but then one I wanted to call out particularly was cloud and data center regulations, again around sustainability. And Singapore is a big data center hub. A lot of companies are setting up their data centers here. So a lot of focus again on sustainability of those data centers, power, energy, efficiency requirements. And then if someone's really wanting to work with the government here, then acquainting yourselves with the broad structure, how things work from a political angle. Things are very different in how we work in India to how it kind of happens in Singapore. So having a basic understanding of who is the monetary authority here, ACRA, and the telecom regulator, and the PDPC, which is a privacy regulator here. So just having a broader understanding of the whole ecosystem, how things work, and applying your tried and tested knowledge that you've already gained as a part of your CorpSec practice would be really helpful. And final point I wanted to make was that in Singapore, compliance is not really a back office checkbox exercise. I think you really have to be strategic in how you comply with things. You have to be a partner in innovation. As I said, a partner in innovation via sandboxes, but also an enforcer of systems integrity, as Miksha said. So you really have to wear multiple hats and make sure that everything binds nicely together. So that's it from my side. Sonu, back to you.
Great. There's one thing that you just mentioned, that in Singapore, compliance is not really a checkbox activity. I think in India also, we've kind of moved in that direction. The SEBI recently had called out that there should be chief compliance officers. So it no longer would actually fall into that checkbox activity here as well. And I think there's a realization, the more the company secretary profession is being positioned as a governance profession, I think there's this realization that you cannot just, it's not really a thing that we should be doing. It just should come from within. That's how the country would altogether progress. And you also talked about those consultation papers. Now, I have a question. Is it very similar to how the government, I'm not sure if you were aware, the government here also does this, suggestions before codifying, whenever there is something new that they would trying to be an amendment or anything of the sort, they send out these, they seek suggestions from professionals. So they send out, they ask, is it something similar to that? And then they maybe codify that. Is it something similar to that?
Yeah, I think there are two different ways, Sonu, how things work here. So, for example, let's take a bill, which is a draft version of a bill. Let's take the Cybersecurity Act. So, the act was enacted initially in 2018. And then after that, since last many years, there have been so many changes in the cybersecurity landscape. So, the way they do things is that they would then come up with a limited consultation, a closed consultation with a few stakeholders who are like critical infrastructure sector providers, and just understand their pain points. Then based on that, that informs into a draft paper, a consultation paper. It's not even an amendment as of now. So then they come out with a soft version of a draft amendment bill, which will then be open up to a public consultation. So it's like a multi-pronged process. I think very similar to what we have in India.
Kind of.
Like I work with the Department of Telecom and the telecom regulator in India. It's very similar to that. So the beauty of that is that you really have, this is truly reflective of the sentiments of the industry, and it really works well, and it's not really a one-way streak in that sense.
Yeah, I think the governments understand that this is how probably the country can progress, can have more and more industry people flourishing. Okay, while we are discussing all of this, because I was so drawn to the second part of your answer that I actually forgot. The first part is kind of a little underrated. You don't really pay too much attention, but it was very interesting to know, because there is different ethnicity there. And I think you made a very important point there, that we have to be mindful in how the little thing that exchanging business cards or even using the titles and the names correctly is so very important, which we often forget here. Because we're such a big population, and over here everyone's Indian, and we are like, okay, this is how we should be calling. If not, a sir and a ma'am would do. But then it's
Yeah.
very important when you're going on to moving into a new jurisdiction. I think these are the things that people should also be very careful of and understand beforehand. Apart from the regulatory landscape or the other jurisdictional things, I think this is a very important point made. Thank you so much, Priya, on that. Okay.
So to Sonu to
Nimiksha,
add
yes.
on to Priya's point, right, on the people side for Singapore, the thank you culture here, I think is like way beyond I've seen in other cultures, right? For every single thing, the thank you comes forward wholeheartedly. I mean, I think that's the beauty, and you learn to do that way too, right? So I think that's one thing I really picked in my initial few months when I came into Singapore 6 years back, right? So the thank you culture extremely goes out from the heart to every single one here. So I think that's very much inbuilt in the culture, whether it's a Malay, whether it's an Indian, whether it's a Singaporean, Chinese, or whatever, right? So I think. Certainly has been on my learning thing in the very first few months when I came here.
And I'm sure that is going to be a major takeaway today for all our participants. I mean, that
Yes.
keeps you grounded, that keeps you so humble and true to you, whatever you are doing.
Yeah.
So I think this webinar today is also very well timed. Priya mentioned that Singapore is trying to position itself as a financial hub of the region. So this is a perfectly timed webinar wherein opportunities for company secretary professionals to actually look for things there, and also because Singapore is also becoming a big data center. So I think data governance can be one area where a lot of professional expertise could be needed. So that's one area that we could also explore. Thank you so much. I'll now move on to Nitish. We've talked a little bit about AI. We've seen your presentation. We are so blown away. I have a question for you now. You work as a practicing CS in Singapore. Given the regulatory digitalization under the Singapore Companies Act, what is expected from a corporate secretary in Singapore? Is AI, I mean, you've briefly mentioned that it is good to have it. I mean, not really good to have it, but it makes your life easier. But is AI a necessity now?
Okay. First of all, thank you for your question wholeheartedly. Okay. So let's start with what I do as a practicing company secretary today. I handle all statutory filings. I draft resolutions. I handle uh, investment agreements. I handle amendments to constitution, shareholders agreements, statutory filings, liaising with IRAS for tax authorities, Ministry of Manpower. Add these to the annual compliances, the regular periodic work that we have, XBRL filings, all those things. So this is a role that just 5 years ago, before COVID, would have taken at least 4 times of the manpower that I'm using now. At least 4 times if we compare to 2019, pre-COVID. Let me give you an incident. One of my clients, he's a founder. He called me 6 p.m. on a Tuesday evening, and he wanted documents for appointment of 2 directors, investment documents, resolution, constitution amendment, and Series A allotment pack by next day noon, because Thursday is his investor meeting. This would have been impossible 4 years ago. It would have taken at least 3 or 4% whole day's work to finish it. I mean, at least 4% for 2 days, not even 1 day, 2 days work to review everything, review previous records. But with our AI tool ready last year, we were able to do it in time, within first half of the day, about 4 hours of work. And most of it was spent on reviewing the document, not preparing document. Reviewing documents, reviewing previous authorities, whether previous authority is in force or not, or is it in compliance with previous resolution, and that's it. So the level of productivity that AI is giving us is unforeseeable pre-COVID. We could not have imagined that we could have done so much in so less time, with so less manpower. That also brings to cost savings as well, and quality work. So you're coming back to your question, is AI a necessity? It is becoming one, not because technology forces it, because client expectation and statutory turnaround time have squeezed into much smaller space now. It has collapsed. So if your firm is not using AI in 2026, your competitor is, and your client noticed it last quarter.
So
So that's the
Nitish,
short
our
answer to it.
CS AI guy today. I mean, any questions about AI, he will weave it in so well. You convincing us, we all need to build that into our systems now.
I hope it does
And of course,
convince some
yes, you've
people.
done it all by yourself. I think more so because necessity is the mother of invention. So it was available, and you just grabbed that and you built it into your processes to make things easier. Very, very important. Uh, Hemiksha, is then it's okay to say that AI and legal tech is transforming the CS and legal function. How do you balance the opportunities with associated risk in the global environment?
Again, a great question. And we've heard so much from Nitish on the AI and how AI can be integrated into any system, any industry, right? So I think AI and legal tech or all these applications, these are fundamentally reshaping both, right? Whether it's a CS role or whether it's a legal function, right? It helps us like from being reactive to proactive, as I mentioned earlier, right? It helps us bring more strategic in what we present to the board. Now, practically speaking, AI is driving efficiencies in various areas, be it compliance management, compliance tracking, regulatory monitoring, or as basic as contract lifecycle management, right? Where traditionally we used to spend a lot of time reviewing documents, but now with all this automation, we are able to kind of focus more on strategic matters, decision making matters, board advisories, and all of that, right? So the real transformation is not just about efficiency. The real transformation is about better decision making. So how these tools enable us, right, to kind of integrate into our current roles, integrate into our current systems, and provide leadership teams with a real time, I would say, a real time dashboard or a real time visibility into compliance status, into what could be the potential risks for the organization, or bridging the governance gaps, I would say, for the organization, right? So I think that's where I would say AI and legal tech go hand in hand. And also it's not just in a global setup. I think even if for large corporates, or even today, as Nitish mentioned, even for a PCS firm in India, right, it's equally important to have these AI. If not, then you will be left behind in the race. And that completely resonates with the quote that Priya mentioned earlier, right? So if you're not adapting to AI, you will be left behind in the race. So I think the focus has to be on integrating the technology with a very strong governance framework to ensure that there are the appropriate controls in place, validating, and the mechanism is there for collaborating with IT, with security teams, and kind of having a safeguard, having those guardrails around yourself to ensure the compliances are done in the right manner. So yeah, I think organizations would succeed if they combine the technological capability and the human judgment. It's not just that just the AI can take you off, or just the human mind is enough. I think it has to go hand in hand, and only when both of these kind of collaborate together, an organization would succeed, and we as individuals would be able to better perform in the long run.
Yeah, I think for the longest time we've been talking about bridging the gap. So this is how we would be doing it, actually bridging that gap.
So I just wanted to add to
Yeah.
what Hamiksha said about governance. I think that's a topic that's very close to my heart, and I've been working a lot on that topic, especially as we crystallize our approach on the governance part of AI. Right? It's very, very important. And to be honest with you, it's not really today. We are not really talking about whether AI is we are going to be embracing AI. It's about how we put the guardrails around it. And I think for professionals, I'd probably make a few pointers if they want to really look into the right direction. Of course, we have different approaches emerging globally, how countries are regulating AI, right? You have the hard approach, which is coming in Europe, which is with the EU AI Act. And then you have the US, which has come up with certain regulations and guidelines and executive orders. But then in the Asia Pacific region itself, we see a lot of diversity. Of course, we are a highly diverse region, but then you see Indian approach, which is pro business, pro innovation. India just hosted a big event, the AI Summit, and it was one of the successful events. I've heard a lot of kind of praise about that event and how it kind of shaped up the policy discourse. But I think beyond that, what frameworks are emerging for professionals, it would be a good opportunity to bring themselves up to speed with what are the regulatory frameworks emerging around AI governance. What is the Singaporean approach? What is the Indian approach? What are the guidelines emerging? Even though they are soft guidelines, but they do reflect the regulatory mindset. How the government are going to come out with it, whether they're going to be very hard laws or soft laws. So I think for professionals, if they can bring themselves up to speed with those, it will show how up to date they are in terms of governance frameworks as well. Because our role, as we said, was more about being trusted partners to the business. So that's something I'd kind of recommend for professionals who really are interested in delving deeper. You spoke about data governance. I think very, very important space. And whatever revolutionary trends we are seeing today around AI is all being underpinned by the data sets that's the model are being trained on, right? So integrity of data privacy concerns, all of that. Again, we need a separate session for that. But I think for compliance professionals, data privacy itself is a big tower and pillar that they could kind of
We've
segue
recently
into.
had that act in India as well.
Yes,
So
yes, we had
it is a
yes.
big thing that has come in. And I think what you said is quite right. When we talk about that, there should be kind of an analysis as to what jurisdiction, which region, how the regulators are looking at this whole AI and data and the governance part of it. I think an analysis, and also to place yourself and see what works best for you. So like you said, yes, India is a pro business country. We did host the AI summit. It was a big hit, and all said and done. But then as company secretaries or as governance professionals, I think there's a lot of responsibility that we would also have in terms of the governance aspect. Um, there would be so much technology governance, if we could just broadly frame it, that would be a very important area that one would need to work on, even explore. The more we look into it, the more loopholes and the more gray areas we'd be finding, and we would be needing more work in there. So yeah, very, very importantly and very rightly said.
And just to add to that, Sonu, again, like Priya mentioned, governance is certainly going to be a critical aspect for all of us, right?
Absolutely.
There are key risks, like not just data privacy, but confidentiality. I mean, it's all said
Absolutely.
and done. The more the tools, the more we can't be over relying on these automation tools that kind of we endanger ourselves, right? I mean, that can't be the case, like Nitish also mentioned. At the end, we have that professional liability. So no matter what the AI comes with, the efficiency that it brings on table for us professionals, but at the same time, we need to ensure that there is enough risk mitigation towards data privacy concerns, towards confidentiality, towards security, towards cross-border, right? So I think all of those data flows and mechanics have to be in place before we kind of integrate AI into our systems.
I think the bottom line is we are company secretaries. Let's not just forget that. And keep living up to that image, irrespective of whether we integrate all of this to make our life easier and imbibe in newer things, new technology. But bottom line, you are a company secretary, you are responsible, and you are answerable, accountable to everything that happens. Dinesh, you have been working across jurisdictions. We've talked so much about, cross-jurisdictional data exchanges and all of that. Now, as much as it sounds exciting, I'm sure it has its own challenges. Are there any academic tie-ups that can help Indian company secretaries? This is a completely new thing that I'm trying to bring in. We've talked so much about data exchanges and all that. This is particularly for Indian company secretaries. I'm asking this: are there any particular tie-ups that could help Indian company secretaries serve clients better in Singapore or maybe globally?
Okay. Good question. And the biggest challenge what normally we face is changes and collaboration. So most of the time in India, we face like collaboration is the still like we say it's not like untouchable word. So we don't collaborate with each other very easily. But recently, I've just read the news that Company Secretary Institute has collaborated and entered into an MOU with CIMA, that is CGMA qualification, Chartered Management Institute Accounting. And I'm a member of that CIMA, and that privilege has helped me to enter this Singapore. Because whenever you want to enter a new country, you need some qualification or academics where it is recognized locally. And I read it in SEMA's website as well as on a journal also, that they have multiple tie-ups and collaborations with most of the world's universities as well as professional institutes. So it is like, say, for my example, like I cleared my SEMA in 2002, and while entering 2015 to Singapore, we need to have a license called CSP in Singapore. So to get that license, you need a qualified individual, and to get that qualified individual, you need to be a local professional. Now, the challenge was like I am a company secretary and cost accountant from India. I am a lawyer also from India, but that all degrees is not recognized locally in Singapore. So then we did this pre-study before we enter, and we found that SEMA is recognized in Singapore under ISCA. So Institute of Chartered Accountants of Singapore, that is ISCA, is giving membership as a associate membership to the SEMA members without any write-up of papers or anything. So that has helped me to get the qualified individual license, and then I entered the Singapore. So collaboration, I said, if we are not collaborating, the chances of missing out the bus is much, much higher. So for the members also, those who want to globally, my suggestion is to take 1 or 2 foreign degrees. It may be anything. With SEMA, I'm recommending because I'm a member of that, and I see the benefit in Singapore, even in Australia or Europe, any country you go, SEMA has tied with each and every country with the professional bodies, and you get the membership either with 1 or 2 papers or directly exempted from all exams and directly entered as an associate member. So this is, I can say, it's helping it. So collaboration is the word I can say is must for everybody, all corporates, all members like.
Collaboration at the institutes level, I'm sure, but then
even though the members also collaborate, they learn something new.
Oh, yes, of course. But you've taken it to a different angle. What I wanted to say was members can, yes, you really brought in an interesting insight that to add more relevant degrees. I think to make yourself more relevant into a jurisdiction that you're wanting to move into. Of course, I mean, that rigidity that I'm a company secretary professional, what else would I need? Gone are the days, when you were graduate, you are a graduate, okay, that's more than enough. But then you started adding on degrees to your graduation because you wanted to become more relevant according to the changing times. I think same goes if you're wanting to move into a new jurisdiction. Whatever will hold your secretarial qualification a little more relevant, give you an edge over the others. I think we also have a tie-up with the CGI, I think. But then that requires residency. I mean, that has a residency requirement if you are to. So if you would throw some light on that also.
So if you want to study the local CGI membership, means company secretary in Singapore, then you need to pass at least 7 papers, 7 exams you need to clear, and that normally takes 1.5 years. Okay. And to appear for that exams, you need to have a local residency permit.
Right.
So either you take as a student visa or you go in any other visa, but apply for the pass the exams and then apply for the membership. Whereas in the advice to the member is like, whoever wants to explore the foreign countries or explore the opportunities abroad, first study the local requirement of that particular country and try to see that if any collaboration is helping you to navigate that faster. I'm not saying easier, because nothing is easy in the foreign world, and everything is challenging. Means the moment you land into the new country, a lot of challenges you face.
Easy is boring. Easy is boring, Dinesh. Let's just put it this way. Easy is boring.
No, I think Dinesh, you made a very important point, but I think beyond the professional qualification also, if you're moving to a country, there are other visa requirements, right? Employment visa. And I think those have to be also baked in your decision-making process.
Right.
So maybe we can talk a bit about that as well.
Yes.
So I think I answered the challenges and academic side, I think.
Yeah. I
I
think
think
just to add one additional
Huh.
perspective, so CS, of course, you can do the CS additional qualifications, but if a CS were to segue into data governance space or the privacy space, for example, or AI governance professional space, then there are other international organizations that are offering courses, and I am not associated with it, but an International Association of Privacy Professional is one organization. Their certifications are internationally recognized. So if you were to kind of explore a career in as a DPO, for example, data privacy officer for a company, your company secretary background really would help you because you already have a compliance background, but also the relevant privacy certification could help. I mean, I, for example, also did my privacy certification back in 2021 because I thought that would be a good combination to have with the compliance role that I'm having. So that's again another option people can explore if they really don't want to go into hardcore company secretary certification. They could go to something which is connected, complementary to their certification already.
I think opportunities are galore. You
Yeah.
just have to have the right mix. And more so, I think there are two ways to look at it. One is I want to move out of the country. I have chosen a country. This is the country that I would want to move into. And then let me just explore everything and see what works there and what is the easiest. So that's one way of looking at it. The other way could be I know my area of expertise. As a company secretary, this is what I've been working in. And I would see that how this area could expand a little more, or I would be able to do a lot more work in this particular area in a different country, and what additional qualification can align to that. So I think there are two approaches. And with that CGI thing, sir, that you mentioned, there are 7 papers. But I think as an Indian company secretary who's got a good standing for 2 years, they just have to clear 3 papers. The only thing is there is a residency requirement for the Singapore CGI degree. However, a person can always take up the CGI qualification of a different jurisdiction, and which doesn't have residency requirement, and then maybe can get it transferred. So that's easily available. So that is
And
something.
secondly, with this SEMA tie-up of ICSI, you can clear the SEMA exam sitting in India. And then when you want to move, you can get the membership anywhere across the world because of their tie-ups.
That's another brilliant thing that that we can be talking about. You know, to build a truly global career, this is what the young professionals should be exploring and looking at. So there's a need of a shift of the mindset besides the capacity building. And understanding regional cultural norms is a must for building rapport and ensuring respectful professional interactions that we got to know from Priya. Would you also want to throw some more light on these specific protocols, business protocols? Or, I mean, adding a little more to whatever you've said earlier, would you want to do a little more detailed explanation? Or we think we covered?
I think I covered that. Whatever my personal experience, I have shared that.
Priya, would you want to add to that?
No, I think pretty much covered that in our initial remarks. But yeah, just one maybe point about, and this is more again cultural. I think people tend be the public transport systems or any other place, you tend to see people forming a queue and being very patient about being on their turn, which is very different to other cultures. Like we come from India, it's very different from there. So maybe understanding that is also important. Even if you're going to a government organization, for example, you would see that there is a queue system there also, and people follow the queue to the T, right? So it's not that you just have your way, someone there, and so I think those kind of subtle nuances we have to be mindful of. Of course, on a lighter side, chewing gum is not allowed. It's a fine city, so you can't litter in the public. There's so many other smaller things, and on a lighter vein, that we need to be mindful of, because when you start living as a professional, you not only carry yourself as personally, but also carry your identity as an Indian, for example. And I think that, we need to be mindful of all those issues. And finally, last but not the least, I think the general, I think Hamiksha mentioned, generally the fact that the very fact that for every work that you do, which you're generally obliged to do, there's a lot of thank you coming in. So people are generally very appreciative of what you do. That's a cultural thing again, I believe, and it gets baked. You get kind of a used to it, but you also need to bake it in your own day-to-day working style as well to align with the norm here. Yeah, so
I
that's
think that I made that point earlier that that would be a one big takeaway from today's webinar, that we should be a little more thankful to people, more
yes.
appreciative and accommodating. And I think why just a shift of this mindset for young professionals wanting to move out of India? Why not here? Like, let's bring in
Right.
that change. So I think that's for all of us here to, kind of take that in. Nitish, this one last question to you. Where do you see the biggest global opportunity for Indian company secretary professionals today? Can a CS trust AI for compliance critical calculations, or should they always double check manually? Where to draw the line between AI efficiency and ethical governance? This
So
is
those are
very briefly, you've mentioned, but very
sure,
quickly, if you could just
sure.
give us the.
So yeah, three good questions in one. Let me take them one by one. First, the
I'm so
biggest.
sorry. I wanted you to
It's okay.
be very brief, but so that I've just
Sure,
asked all three in one go.
sure, no problem. So I see India-Singapore corridor is the single largest opportunity. Indian origin businesses are setting up holding companies or operating companies for Asian business in Singapore at a level I have not seen in last 15 years. The scale is growing day by day. With the globalization and tools that the professionals have at our disposal today, like AI or even the general information that's available there, you don't have to be physically based in Singapore or any other country to take up assignments related to that country. Even for Hong Kong, even for Singapore, you can do it. Start small, start from wherever you are. Arthur famously said, do what you can, start wherever you are, use what you have. So based on that, you can just take assignment from India. You can have a small collaboration with any firm for filing. Aside from filing, everything else you can do from India, from anywhere. World is a very small place now. And filing is just a part of secretarial work, not everything of it. If you know how to draft resolution, if you know how to draft constitutions, if you know how to draft investment agreements, maintain your cap table, maintain all the records, you don't have to be in Singapore particularly to expand your practice outside India, not just Singapore, to anywhere. And then secondly, can you trust AI for calculations? Yes, you can trust AI for calculation, but you have to verify. Trust but verify. That's what they say in Singapore. There's a compliance culture. So you don't have to calculate everything manually, but you just get AI to do the hard work. AI is technically your assistant that types very fast, that does the calculation very fast. Take it that way. Can you rely on AI? No, because it's your signature at the end of the day. So you have to get AI to do the mundane work, the repetitive work, and then you verify yourself. Trust, but verify. So you can trust AI for compliance calculation. And third question, the ethical line, and this is where I'm most direct. AI prepares, company secretary decides, files, and approves it. Statutory liabilities doesn't move. They still stay with the professional. As we mentioned earlier, the title is company secretary, you mentioned earlier. It's company secretary, let's be company secretary. One of my friends mentioned to me one of the times that we are company secretaries, not company auto submitters. Use your brain, use your discretion, use your professional knowledge. Don't auto submit whatever comes in. So yes, this ethical line, you cannot rely on AI to file everything on behalf. Just verify, trust but verify. And the day a company secretary lets a draft go without unreviewed is the day we will stop being company secretaries. And as you mentioned, let's be company secretaries.
Of course.
Thank
So
you.
I think in one line, you still are the boss. Let AI do the mundane and the tedious, the time-consuming task, but at the end of the day, you're the boss. So you got to only let it pass through once you've seen it all. So
Yes,
yeah,
yes.
you the boss at the end of the day. Hemiksha, very quickly, this is one last thing that maybe you and Dinesh together could give us some inputs on. The mobility options, including visas, work passes, available for governance professionals seeking opportunities in Singapore.
Right. So for me, the entrance to the path to Singapore was easy because my husband moved first, and then I came in as a dependent pass, and then got into a job here. But then the route, one of which Dinesh already mentioned, was about the student pass. If somebody is interested in pursuing further, learning opportunities, they can come in here as a student pass, right? And then pursue their learning here and then look out for a job on the side. But that would only be if they're on a student pass. Now, for folks like us who are, as coming here as professionals, there are several options, and all of that depends on the salary band that you have been offered and a mix of certain parameters that the government drives here, whether it's in terms of the ethnicity that you come from, in terms of percent in that organization. So, say for example, if our organization would have X% of Indians, it should have basically they want to ensure that there's a diverse
Right
crowd.
mix.
Right. So from that perspective, there's a limit. So when you enter Singapore, you can be issued different passes. One of it would be like skilled pass, SP as we call it. One could be employment pass. One could be personalized employment pass. So employment pass is basically where your employer sponsors you. The
Okay.
personalized employment pass is where you yourself sponsor your stay in Singapore, and that is issued only once in a lifetime for 3 years. It cannot be renewed, and that is given only when you have like a salary above, I think, 22K or something per month. So it's like, but it depends on the salary, and these numbers keep changing. Obviously, the government is kind of imposing stricter regulations around it with every single year now. And then the ultimate one is one pass, where again, that's a self-sponsored. Again, that's like a 30K per month salary threshold. So the different options would be skill pass, employment pass, personalized employment pass, and one pass, as we call it here. Yeah.
Okay.
And then there
The
are
difference between the
parameters.
last two would just be the financial
So
component.
for all of these, is the financial ones are like the primary threshold is going to be the salary band,
Okay.
what you have been offered, and the other parameters, as I said, about ethnicity, about like Dinesh you mentioned, right, about what you have studied. Does that institution fall in their category?
Okay.
And then there's a rank. There's a pointing system in Singapore, so you are allotted points, and then if you're able to cross certain threshold, then you're given a certain pass. Else, you may just come at a skilled pass and not at a employment pass. So there are certain various parameters, I would say, depending on your salary, depending on your employer organization structure, depending on our own education, and which is what ties back to the previous conversations that we had earlier in the hour today about getting multiple certifications from globally reputed organizations, including CS locations abroad, right? So all of those kind of really tie in well for anybody who aspires to kind of move into Singapore.
Dinesh, would you want to add something to that?
Yeah, even for the employment, people are looking for an employment. So unless they have a multidisciplinary experience on a finance,
Right.
legal, it's like difficult to enter the Singapore. Secondly, the qualifications. So professional qualification is must for most of the employment pass. It is without that, it's very, very challenging. I'm not saying not possible, but it's challenging. So
Right.
those who have a professional qualification with multidisciplinary side, like say CS, CA, CIMA from UK, ISCA from Singapore, any additional degree will help you to increase your chance of getting the pass easily. So that's what I say. If you add on the qualification as and when you get an opportunity, if you want to shift abroad. So whether you shift abroad in Singapore or in Dubai or in Australia or UK, this is basic criteria are more or less similar for most of the countries.
Yes.
They first give you preference and ranking on your qualification. So if your qualification is diverse, probably your chances of getting employment is also much higher, because the employer will look for not only one skill, but he will look for the multiple skills right now.
Okay, that brings us almost to the end of this wonderful webinar. However, I would still want one last line from each one of you all. Summing up the entire webinar, also talking about the global reach while remaining relevant across jurisdictions and different regulations and the board expectations, kind of just summing it up. Just one line from each one of you all. We'll not really go in a very detailed discussion. So we'll start with Nitish.
Sure. So I will repeat. Professional liability lies with you. Stick to AI. Reputation travels at the speed of light. Maintain a reputation. Be transparent. Be productive. Because if you don't change the times will change you.
Perfect. Brilliant. Hemiksha.
Well, I would just express my gratitude and say thank you for this opportunity, and thank you for us being as the qualified CS, because our jobs are not certainly going away 100%, although even when there was no AI, or even now when AI comes in. So I think we're still going to be there in the race with the rest professionals. Thank you.
Priya, your last words.
Well, I'd just like to thank all our attendees today, and I'll just say that the global stage is waiting for you, and you are the ones who are going to bridge the gap between technology, compliance, ethics, and law. So keep learning, stay curious, and I hope to seeing many of you in the boardrooms of our future.
Whoa, that's so much positivity coming in. That's what you wanted. Dinesh, your last line would be?
Learn, collaborate, grow.
Collaboration, AI. I think Dinesh with collaboration and Nitish with AI. So,
Yes.
and
That's
thank
the
you from
collaboration.
and being more thankful from Hemiksha and Priya. That's the takeaway. These three, four words are the takeaway of today's webinar. I extend my sincere gratitude to all our esteemed speakers for sharing their valuable time and expertise. I wanted to take in the audience questions. However, we've kind of run out of time, but we request you all, whoever is watching, to please email your questions to us at overseas, that is OVERSEAS, overseas @ICSI.edu. And we promise we'll respond to each one of them. If they are directed at any of our overseas centers, we'll redirect it to them. We'll get responses from them. And I would also like to thank the ICSI Overseas Center Singapore, Dinesh ji in dual role here, for its continued collaboration, and most importantly, thanking you all participants for your active engagement. We hope this session has inspired you to think beyond boundaries and embrace the future of company secretary profession. If you've not been able to answer any of your questions, like I said earlier, please feel free to email them to us. Stay connected with ICSI for more such global knowledge initiatives. And thank you once again, everyone. Have a wonderful day.
Thank you.
Thank you.
all.
Thank
Bye.
you.
Thank you.
Bye.
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 Bye-bye.